Mutants have been in the MCU this entire time, and you didn't even know about it. What's up, everybody? Rob and Chris here from the Jersey Comic Crew. We are hoping you're having a fantastic day. And yes, like I said, we have, well, maybe I should be more accurate. Chris has a crazy theory that the mutants have been in the MCU this entire time, and we haven't noticed it. So, Chris, why don't you start breaking down all this evidence that I know you've been squirting away in your little fortress of solitude?
Yes, I've been Charlie Day at the Red Board for the last 3 days figuring this out because we didn't get mutants in Multiverse of Madness, and we thought we were, Rob.
Yeah.
So the first thing I want to talk about is going back to Iron Man 3.
Okay.
Yes, Iron Man 3 wasn't my favorite Iron Man. I'm sure it wasn't a lot of people's favorite Iron Mans. But there's a really big point in there where Aldrich Killian, the main villain who invents the Extremist Project, uses a bioelectrical radiation to create extremists. Now, obviously, a lot of that is pseudoscience. It's comic book science.
Yeah.
But the way he explains it in the film is a process of the next level of humanity, of evolving, of this is the next step with science, biology, all of that stuff. And it eventually creates what? He could regrow limbs. He shoots energy blasts from his chest and his eyes and his mouth and everywhere else.
Okay.
And he literally calls it a DNA sequencer that evolves you into the next level of humanity. So that's hint number one, going back all the way to Iron Man 3.
I didn't even think of that. I completely, well, one, because the movie wasn't the greatest, but I completely ruled out all the science talk and how it applies that potentially relates to the mutant gene and all that kind of stuff. I get that, but I ruled that to science mumbo jumbo about trying to explain away the story.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this is going to be science mumbo jumbo, right? The X-Men in general are kind of scientific mumbo jumbo in the Marvel universe, but the next phase is we get to Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Okay. And
that's where we meet the Sovereign, that golden race of beings that capture the Guardians in the beginning.
Where the whole outfit is a golden drip. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And the faces, everything, or just gold everywhere. It's gold members, most fantastic fantasy you could possibly imagine. Solid gold. Okay. And the Sovereign, which we know are going to create Adam Warlock in the next volume.
Yes.
But in that movie particularly, Rocket Raccoon steals these little vials, these little battery vials. Now, when that movie ended, James Gunn said, if you are really good, if you can really get into this movie, there is a hint at Rocket's origin throughout this entire film. Now, going back and looking at a couple of contexts, you can see that he's hinting at a character from the Marvel Comics called the High Evolutionary. Now, the High Evolutionary rings a little bit of a bell, right?
Yeah, I know
High
who that
Evolutionary in the comics, for those who don't know, is a character that is basically like a scientist. Think of Mr. Sinister, but on a different plane of existence. Yes. He's cosmic. And what he does is he takes humans, tests them with radiation, cosmic radiation, and kind of those vials that look like what Rocket stole, and change them into forms and new beings called his new men. Yeah. Now, what else he did was he used that same tech on animals, which is another hint in that movie with Yondu. Yondu calls Rocket Rat the entire time.
Yeah.
The High Evolutionary used basically solely rats to kind of recreate them into these mutants. So there is a huge connection of Rocket may have not have been a raccoon at all when he started. He could have been one of those rats that the High Evolutionary worked on from the beginning.
That'd be really funny if he was a rat. I don't think that's accurate with him being a rat, but the High Evolutionary theory in Marvel and the MCU makes sense. He operates and manipulates, animals and create these animal-human hybrids that are running around and stuff like that. He's a big villain for X-Men. He's actually in there right now, which is really cool.
Yep.
But I don't know if that necessarily means, mutants have been here the whole time. I mean, maybe it's just this guy who does weird stuff with mutations.
That could totally be the case, and I understand your skepticism. Again, I'm skeptic too. This is a crazy theory. But then we get to Endgame, Rob, and a lot of stuff happens in Endgame, but there's two big things that happen in Endgame. One of them is that lovely, heartbreaking scene where Steve sees Peggy when him and Tony go back in time.
Good scene.
So they go back in time to get the Pym particles. Yeah. They're in that S.H.I.E.L.D. base. Peggy's working in an office. Steve's looking at her through the glass. Now, there's something there that you can only see with the captions on. You have to have the closed captions on. So for people like me, I didn't catch it the first 40 times because I never have captions on. But there's a line where Peggy is talking to someone. Someone comes into her office and goes, oh, we have a problem with Braddock and a thunderstorm. He got caught in a storm.
Okay.
And like he got caught in a lightning storm or something like that.
Sure.
Braddock is a very specific name. Number one, Braddock refers to, could be just an Easter egg for Captain Britain, right? Which we eventually
That's
see.
what I thought, yeah.
We eventually see Peggy kind of be Captain Britain in Multiverse of Madness and in What If. The other Braddock, though, which is one of my favorite X-Men, is Psylocke.
Oh, okay.
So we have Betsy Braddock by name, and obviously Lightning Storm, who am I thinking? Aurora Monroe, Storm herself. But Rob, the bigger thing here, and obviously we'll get to like obviously the blip stuff.
Yeah.
But this was back in time. This is before the MCU kind of starts.
Oh, so the mutants could have been doing the whole mutant thing before like it got noticed and notoriety in like 2008 with Iron Man becoming like the first superhero. And then the mutants, while they've been operating in the shadows, if you will, were like, oh, great, now this guy's going to alert everybody's presence to these crazier than life beings. And our whole job before as mutants was to make sure nobody knew our presence or any kind of presence like this. If Captain America is seeing Peggy in this office sector, which is, very classified government information, it makes sense that another government agent would be like talking in code, like Braddock's in a thunderstorm, like, okay, the X-Men are coming and dealing with stuff. Okay, I'm starting to believe a little bit that this may have been a thing.
Yes. Oh, see, and that is perfect, right? Because those could just be throwaway names too, right?
True.
Like, hey, we know the true fans are going to hit those Easter eggs. It could be something that stands on its legs later on. But then we move into kind of what we see post-Endgame. WandaVision's the first thing off the bat. We see not only the recurrence of the blip and people coming back, but we also get the kind of clarification that Wanda's had her powers before she was tested on in Avengers Age of Ultron.
Very true. That's a big
and
part. I remember that.
That also means Pietro probably had some sort of his powers before that. That test more so brought out the powers or activated them harder in, again, Infinity Stone related, right? So that kind of chaos energy kind of brought that out in a different way where now we find out she's had it since she was a kid. So those two mixed up, obviously the throwaway with Ralph Boner. Quicksilver back is a little different, but we're starting to see those kind of, oh, this isn't an Inhuman thing as they called it. Oh, they're kind of shifting it into another direction. Could this be something bigger with the mutants, Rob?
I mean, when you said WandaVision immediately, I'm like, oh, Billy and Tommy, they're mutants, ha. Like, no, that's not really it. I forgot all about like the scene where it's like, yeah, she had powers before, and the Reality Stone and the various testing that they did on her was a catalyst to awaken that kind of power. So to me, I'm like, all right, this person had power this whole time, which is something relatively new for the MCU, because any powered individual in the MCU, you were kind of able to explain it away via technology, via like alien interference. Like, all right, there's a reason why sorcery, witchcraft were here, and now it's either like, oh, is it like sorcery and witchcraft has always been a thing, or is it more a mutation and that's why she has these powers? Your case is getting stronger. That's what I'm gonna say. I know you have more before I'm on the crazy train with you.
Yes. I'm glad you are starting to believe. He's beginning to believe, as Morpheus would say. We go into the Eternals. The biggest message the Eternals send is that the deviants, literal mutations of the Eternals.
Yes.
Now, we have all those mainline questions about the Eternals, right? They've been here forever. They could have helped with Thanos. They could have helped with any of these things. Why didn't they? But the other question is, so could the Eternals be kind of the ancestor to the mutants coming down?
It makes a lot of sense. The Eternals, like even in comic book lore, are like almost directly responsible for mutants being existent on our world. Their mutation, their powers, like exudes into other beings, and that's how it like a trickle down effect. And I can see that being happening in the MCU's case, because it's like, all right, this happened over time. And over time, we've evolved. We take in that energy that's always been there. The Eternals were a catalyst for more of that gene to be spread around. As the years go by, it evolves. I could see that. And I'm not sure if the Eternals can procreate, but like maybe somewhere down the line, there's a Bast Eternal baby, and they just and made love with someone, so that like more of that genetic code got out into the human race, which could be a cause of why some people have powers or have the capability of powers, and other outside catalysts come on there and activate that power, like we saw with Wanda. I'm seeing your vision. I don't know if I buy it yet, but like it's kind of hard to ignore.
I like that you're actually on board. I was really nervous about explaining this whole thing, but the last part I'm going to group together because it's going to be short. And
sure,
this is all stuff we now are kind of all into, right? Loki and Sylvie break the timeline. Loki and Sylvie take out He Who Remains. It's causing the multiverse to go mad. No pun intended. And we see all the tendrils and the possibilities that the multiverse holds. And we also see that in No Way Home, right? We see kind of the cause and effect of the reality shifting of Doctor Strange having to put the genie back in the bottle. Obviously, that was way more towards Spider-Man and his kind of villains who know who Peter Parker is. But I'm sure it didn't help in the multiverse of things. So I think this has all been kind of in small planning since, honestly, Rob, Iron Man 3. Kind of posing these little questions or posing these little hints that at the time no one's gonna see unless you were really, really looking for just X-Men.
Yeah,
I think this is something that has some legs. Again, it could be pure conspiracy, it could be possibly or me looking too far into it because I'm a nerd with too much time on my hands, but it is coming and it's gonna be here and there's gonna be a lot of it.
I really like this theory. It's a lot of fun. I don't know if some of these things that you brought up, like Iron Man 3 and the Peggy Carter thing, really matter in the grand scheme of things. Definitely the Eternals and the WandaVision are the biggest standouts in the case that we have here. If mutants are here, we either have two options with them be coming into the MCU by the ways of movies, appearances, stuff like that. It's either option A, they existed back in the 70s and that's when the group started and like all this kind of stuff, and like we missed some of the team's adventures back then, and now we're gonna like see where they are modern day, or it's gonna be like a period piece connected to like stuff that's happening now, which I don't think is gonna happen, but like it would be cool to fill more of the, I guess, historical timeline bubble that the MCU is building. If you start way back with the Eternals to now, and then you have all these little bits and pieces that explain the, I guess, reality that is the MCU, that would be cool. The other option is kind of going the way of WandaVision, right? What I mean by that, we got explanation, like you said, an outside catalyst affects Wanda, brings out that power. And we're having more of these kind of events happening now, right? The blip was, brought a lot of cosmic radiation. The Eternals, because of the blip, a celestial god came in, so maybe that sparked X-Gene in other people. The other option, like Doctor Strange, there's a convergence happening, so timelines and multiverses are weird and energy are in flux. The Sylvie killing He Who Remains, energy's in flux. So I think some kind of cosmic radiation or energy is going to be in a lot of people and activate this gene, and you're going to see the sudden appearance of these people who have mutant abilities. Now, if it's that case, no matter what the case is, we're still going to get a Charles Xavier who's old, who's been a mutant for a while, and he's just been doing his own thing and slowly maybe building his school to like help people. He's like, oh, I just help people. And then maybe out of all those people, one of them is a mutant. And he's like, oh, like, let me teach you how to do it. And that could be like a young Logan or whatever you want to do. And then he could start building a school and accepting more mutants when the situation arises. I don't know, whatever the case may be, I'm excited for the future of the MCU and mutants.
I like what you said about they've kind of been here possibly during, this whole time, and they've just kind of been in secret. One thing we're kind of overlooking, which I don't know if you're going to think is a cop-out, but I think is a possibility. Well, Professor Xavier is literally mutant powers are, getting into your mind. If he is just erasing people's memories of them after the fact, you could have a flashback where you have Professor X, his 5 mutants from the 60s in the original Uncanny X-Men in their original suits, and they're doing like things here and there. No one knows about it. Mind wipe. And I think when we finally get the mutants, we're going to get kind of like that giant size X-Men issue. I think it's going to be like our Storms, our Nightcrawlers, our Wolverines, Jean, Cyclops, like kind of that together team. And it's going to be more so flashbacks of the early days while we deal with the present and getting them kind of in the fold.
Yes, I do think it's a cop-out. But to go on that trail, if you will, if there was this team in the 60s and 70s, who would it be if it's not the originals? If it's not Iceman, Angel, Jean Grey? Because if
that's what I'm saying, it's the originals.
You think? All right, and they're still going to be around now, 50 years later.
Well, if they start out as kids, and again, sci-fi stuff, right? They may not age like everyone else. I don't know if everyone's going to have the Logan stuff where he just doesn't age at all. But again, does the mutation cause a different aging effect, or does it line up with other things we're seeing? Like Miss Marvel, we just saw Black Bolt, the Eternals. that kind of cocoon system? Is it kind of like, hey, the Eternals are happening, like stuff is just popping up kind of like out of the blue? Hey, all this is a problem, right? Multiverse is open, the walls are closing, we have Celestials hanging out of the planet that we didn't know were there for our entire existence as humanity.
Okay.
Magic is now a big problem in our world. All of these things are kind of hitting at the wrong point at the same time. Does that create an influx of new kind of powered beings, especially people who never had powers or who didn't want them? Kind of just, here you go, now it's time.
I kind of think if they did a team back in the past, I think they would change it. It wouldn't be the X-Men. It'd be like Xavier as a young Xavier with maybe Magneto.
Ooh, that'd be cool.
Maybe it's them and like, let's see who else, like Sinister, like, whoever else is old.
Mystique, maybe.
Nah, I want a young-ish Mystique, but like weird old people that are there. Maybe Apocalypse. Who cares, right? Like this weird ragtag team of like,
no more
old
Apocalypse,
people,
please.
right? And it's like, all right, all these older like X-Men or like they're just like mutants. He's like doing stuff with. I think you could even just be as simple as Xavier and Magneto talking this out, like young, and I'm talking like maybe like in their 20s.
Moira McTaggart?
Well, I don't. We don't even know what we're doing with her in the comic books. Let's calm down with Moira McTaggart because it's a whole weird thing. I don't even know if I like her storyline yet. But like if we do like Charles and Magneto as young 18-year-olds learning they have mutant powers, them having heated college debates of whether they should change the world or not, and then they break away years later. Charles has a school. Magneto has his brotherhood. All this stuff is happening. They both come to the light, and they're both versing each other, kind of deal. I think that could work. I don't know. We'll see.
It could. I think the only issue is, which maybe Marvel's dealing with the same issue, right? Hey, we saw this already, right? We had X-Men First Class. We had, kind of the origin story stuff. We had time pieces, and also my cop out of how do you do this without no one knowing? Right? How do you do this whole situation without no one knowing, or Xavier mind wiping?
It makes sense. He can. Like, he's that strong. Like, that's fine. I don't know. But, guys, we want to hear your thoughts and theories down in the comments below. Do you think the mutants have been in the MCU this entire time, or do you think we're full of hot air? We're dying to hear it.
And, guys, thanks so much for watching. Give us a thumbs up, like. Really helps the channel out a lot. If you're new, subscribe. Turn on notifications. You don't miss any more of our talks, our theories, our wild, crazy ideas. And if you missed anything, it's right here on the channel for you. And as always, I'm Chris Heller. That is Rob Moran with the Jersey Comic Crew. And we'll see you next time.